Alright, in this video we're going to be talking about subtracting with fractions. Who doesn't like that? Alright, so the first thing we have to remember, subtracting with fractions, is we must find a common denominator. So in this problem I have 1/2 and 1/5. So my denominators are 2 and 5, so I'm going to list my multiples. 2, 4, 6, 8, those are commas, 10, 12, so on and so forth. Now, I'm going to go ahead and circle the 10 because I know 5 will go into 10. Let's see, 5 and 10. That's right. They both have a common multiple of 10. Now, I could keep going. I could do 20. I could do 40. I could do 30. But I usually want to find the least common denominator because, again, it just makes my life a little easier when I'm simplifying fractions. So, I'm going to use the 10. So each of these, I'm going to rewrite both of these problems with 10 in the denominator. So, as you guys know, the property 1 states whatever you do to the numerator, you do to the denominator, or vice versa. Whatever you do to the denominator, you do to the numerator. Why am I bringing this up? So I'm going to ask, how do I go from 2 to 10? 2 to 10. Well, I would multiply by 5. So whatever I do to the denominator, I do to the numerator, so times 5, and 1 times 5 is 5. Now the 1/5, how do I go from 5 to 10 times 2? Whatever you do to the denominator, you do to the numerator, and 1 times 2 is 2. Once I'm at this point, I have common denominators, so I can subtract. 10 minus 10 is 10. You do not change the denominators. The denominator stays the same. And then 5 minus 2 is 3. 5 minus 2 is 3. Every time I have an answer, I check to see if I can simplify it. Nothing will go into both 3 and 10 except for 1, so that is my answer, 3/10. Again, find the common denominator. Whatever you do to the numerator, you do to the denominator. Property 1. That way the fractions stay equivalent. Once I have a common denominator, subtract the numerator by numerator, and then once I have my answer, see if I can simplify. If I can't, that is my final answer, my difference. All right, on this problem, I have 6 1/3 minus 5 over 2. 6 1/3 over 5 over 2. There's two different ways we can solve this problem, and I'm going to show you both ways. So the first, now this is a mixed number, this is an improper fraction. So what I could do is turn them both into improper fractions. So this one's already 5 over 2 is improper, so I'm going to keep it as such. Mixed number, how do I turn a mixed number into an improper fraction? Multiply, 3 times 6, multiply, add, denominator stays the same, add. 3 times 6 is 18, 18 plus 1 is 19. That gives me 19 over 3 minus 5 over 2. So what's the problem here? Well, I don't have a common denominators. So 3, 6, 9, 12, 2, 4, 6. First number that they both go in, this common denominator is 6. So then at this point I ask, how do I go from 3 to 6 times 2? Whatever you do to the bottom, you do to the top. And then 2 times 19 is 38. And then on this, how do I go from 2 to 6 times 3? Whatever you do to the denominator, you do to the numerator, and 3 times 5 is 15. Once I'm at this point, I can actually subtract because I have common denominators. 6 minus 6 is 6 because the denominator stays the same. And then 38 minus 15 is 23. But once I'm at this point, 23 over 6, that's not my answer because it's an improper fraction. So how do you simplify an improper fraction? I don't know why I wrote a 1. Top in, bottom out, divide the numerator by the denominator. 6 won't go into 2, we'll go into 23. How many times? That's right, 3 times. 3 times 6 is 18. 23 minus 18 is 5. So how this works is, this is my quotient, the 3 becomes my whole number, my remainder becomes my new numerator, and my denominator stays the same. So 23 over 6 is equivalent to 3 and 5/6. I can't simplify the 5/6, so that is my answer, 3 and 5/6. So this is one way of subtracting a mixed number in an improper fraction. So Mr. Hewlett, what's the other way? Well, I'm glad you asked. Now I already know 6 is my common denominator, so I'm just going to go ahead and rewrite this. I'm going to change this 6 and 2 6. Okay? 3 will go into 6, common denominator, 2 times 3 is 6, and then whenever you do the denominator, you do the numerator, and 1 times 2 is 2. Now, this is an improper fraction. How do I change that? Top in, bottom out, divide 5 by 2, and I'm going to get 2.5. Once I'm at that point, I got to find a common denominator. So 2.5 actually is 2 and 3/6, because how do I go from 2 to 6 times 3? Whatever you do the denominator, you do the numerator. So I'm going to just go ahead and erase this, because 2.5 is the same thing as 2, or equivalent as 2 and 3/6. Now the problem with this one is I can take 2 from 6. I can subtract my whole numbers, but I can't take 3 from 2. So what am I going to do? Well, on the previous problem, we turned them into an improper fraction, which that will always work. Sometimes it's a little more work necessary. So I'm going to borrow. I'm going to borrow from the 6. The 6 becomes a 5. Now, I created a new whole number because I borrowed from the 6. How do I write a whole number? It's 6 over 6. Why 6 over 6? Because 6 divided by 6 is 1. But why 6? Because that is our common denominator. 1 plus 5 is 6. And then, so we know we didn't lose any numbers. And I have 6 plus 2 6, which gives me 5. I'll change this back to red. 5 and 8 6. So 5 and 8 6 is the same thing as 6 and 2 6. Once I've done that, I can subtract 2 by 2 and 3 6. I'm going to do whole numbers. 5 minus 2 is 3. I'm going to write it in blue up here. Here's my answer. And then 8 minus 3 is 5. And 6 minus 6 is 6 because the denominator does not change. Notice in the previous problem, when we did it with improper fractions, we got 3 and 5 6. We still got 3 and 5 6. All right, so again, when subtracting, sometimes you can turn them into improper fractions when you're dealing with mixed numbers and improper fractions. Sometimes you can turn them both into mixed numbers and borrow, whichever way you like best. We're going to do one more example. Now this one, we're going to do it both ways on this one. 6 and 1/4. Minus, I'm going to go ahead and rewrite this as 4 and 2/4. 4 and 2/4. Now on this, I have a common denominator, but I can take 4 from 6, but I can't take 2 from 1. So again, I can't take 2 from 1, so what am I going to do? One option is to borrow, so the 6 becomes the 5. How do I write 1 as a fraction? 4 over 4. Why 4 over 4? Because 4 is my common denominator, plus the 1/4 I already had. So the 5 and 1/4 become, or 5 and 4/4 plus 1/4 becomes 5 and 5/4. This number here is equivalent to 6 and 1/4. Okay. All right, once I have the 5 and 5/4, I can subtract it by 4 and 2/4. I'll rewrite this in red. I'll do my whole numbers first. 5 minus 4 is 1. My numerator is 5 minus 2 is 3, and 4 minus 4 is 4 because my denominators do not change. So 6 and 1/4 minus 4.5 is 1 and 3/4. Okay. So find the common denominator. I couldn't take 2 from 1, so I borrowed. 6 and 1/4 becomes 5 and 5/4. Minus 4 and 2/4, and my answer is 1 and 3/4. Now, I could do this with improper fractions. So the first thing I want to do is find common denominators. Similar to the last problem. At this point, I turn them into improper fractions. How? Multiply Add, denominator stays the same. 4 times 6 is 24. 24 plus 1 is 25. And your denominator stays the same. And let's do the next fraction using math. 4 times 4 is 16. 4 times 4 is 16. Plus 2 is 18. All right. Okay, denominator stays the same. And at this point, I can subtract. 25 minus 18 is 7. 4 minus 4 is 4 because the denominator stays the same. My answer is an improper fraction, so I need to simplify it. Top in, bottom out, divide the numerator by the denominator. 4 will go into 7 one time. 1 times 4 is 4. 7 minus 4 is 3. So, the quotient, the 1, is my whole number. The 3, the remainder, is my new numerator, and my denominator stays the same. So either way I solve it, I get 1 3/4. All right, well, this has been subtracting with fractions. I hope this has helped. If you have any additional questions or concerns, you can email me at jhewlett@leisd.ws. Thanks, and have a great day.